everybody. It's great to see you all. Thank you for attending the Ask Me Anything series today on building effective analytics teams. I'm going to just let people join. It would be great to know where you are all joining from, which countries, time zones. Well, I guess we'll work out when we know time zones, what your favorite color is. No, I'm only joking. You know, but there's a chat box and there is obviously oh, everybody's typing in. Yep. Oh, look, Mark Paradise has said that's the exact order that he watched the same programs in. So we've got magenta. Where's magenta? Oh, that's magenta as in color. Right. I was thinking, blimey, what's going on?
I think isn't that Magenta, Illinois? I think that's one of those.
Magneto character.
Magneto. Magneto. I better make sure I'm switching on for everybody.
Yeah, I had the same problem.
So Harsha, Fremont, California. Favorite color is azure blue. And then we've got data analytics made easy. And there he is. There's the man himself who wrote the book. So, oh my goodness, from Colombo as well. That's 9:30 p.m. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Wow.
Blanca. That is amazing. Rome. Thank you, Katia. So we've got Minneapolis, which is one of my favorite places. Never been there, Andrew, but I'm a massive Prince fan. And that's why I think for me, it's one of those sacred places.
Got to go there in December. Best time.
Yeah. Podgorica. Podgorica. Now I know Podgorica. That's from Muppet. So hopefully I said it right. London and purple. Yes, Amy. Purple is my favorite color too.
Purple.
I've already got a question from Harsha, who was supposed to send that to me on email, but he didn't. But now, thank you, Harsha. So I'm going to just drop it into the order of the day, and I'll just add that.
Never too late to ask questions.
No, not at all. So we are going to begin. The order of play. Oh, thank you for joining from Kuwait, Khalid. It's 7 o'clock. So the order of play really is we will run through an introduction. And introduce all the speakers. We have a ton of questions that you've sent me. The panelists don't know what those questions are. So that's groovy because they are going to be quite surprised. And Harsha, no, you can't see John's axe.
Not yet. You gotta wait to the end, the unveiling of the axe.
Yes. And we've all got some certain props here and there. So So right, I'm going to kick it off. Thank you for all joining. We've got lots of people still coming in. So listen, thank you. And it's a warm welcome from me to all of you. Bill's got his customary coffee cup there. And I don't know what's in the coffee cup. Listen, so you know, thanks for joining today's. Oh right, okay. Is that vanilla flavor or is that a little bit of whiskey?
It's a vanilla flavored whiskey. There you go.
Oh, I see. Okay, well I was right on both counts. So today's show is all about building effective analytics teams, and just a few intros. The event today is sponsored by DataZoom, and we are also partnering with Pact. Pact are our media sponsor for this event series, and Pact's mission is to help the world put software to work through the delivery of effective learning and information services. And they have kindly provided some free book giveaways today. So there's going to be some questions to win some books, 3 books for each of these guys, from each of these guys for each of their books. So be ready on your keyboards, and I will be asking those questions. They will be actually different kinds of questions, not going to be about these guys or about technology or about data and analytics. They're going to be more about pop culture. So, you know, have your, yes, have you, there's one of the books, The Economics of Data, Analytics and Digital Transformation by Bill Schmarzo. Who's going to put up John's book? So there it is, building analytics teams. So Bill's on a wild goose chase now. So a few introductions. John, as you know, is sitting right there. John Thompson is a global operational executive who excels at building and managing innovative, growth-oriented data and technology organizations across multiple industry. He is the best-selling author of not one, but 2 books, Building Analytics Teams, Harnessing Analytics and AI for Business Improvement, and Analytics, How to Win with Intelligence. He's a keynote speaker, and he is the global head of advanced analytics and artificial intelligence at CSL Behring. Bill Schmarzo, who's the dude wearing the hat. Bill's otherwise known as the Schmarzo, affectionately by most people, as well as the Dean of Big Data. He's a professor, educator, influencer, innovator, and he's actually authored 4 books: Big Data, Understanding How Data Powers Big Business; Big Data MBA, which I believe was on the shortlist recently for the top 100 books. And and his new book, Economics of Data Analytics and Digital Transformation, and The Art of Thinking Like a Data Scientist. So those are the 4 books. And he's now the customer advocate for data management incubation at Dell Technologies. Now,
thank you.
And our special guest star today. Very cool to have you on our show today, Andrea De Moro. Andrea's got more than 15 years of international experience in leading data and analytics initiatives across multiple domains, including sales, marketing, finance, and product supply. He has been the director of business analytics at Procter & Gamble, looking after the continuous elevation of the role of data and algorithms in the business and the development of digital fluency across the global organization. He's also a professor of marketing analytics and applied machine learning at the universities of Bari and Florence, Italy, and the International University in Geneva, in Switzerland. He's also the author of Data Analytics Made Easy. So, hey, welcome.
Welcome. Can I add like a sentence to the bio?
You can add a sentence, please do.
Say Andrea is also very scared because he doesn't know what to expect. I've heard about Axis, and it's like, but
don't worry. We'll treat you with care.
Go easy on me. All the simple questions to me. The other one.
There are no simple questions, Andrea. You've written a book now. You've authored. You've authored over a number of different papers, and you've got people in the industry who have signed off on your papers. 1,600 credits or something like that, right? So, dude, you're in the game now.
Go
That's it.
Welcome, Andrea.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Welcome to the madhouse.
Yes, that's what it is. So,
thanks for inviting.
We are going to have a lot of engagement with people on the chat. So please do engage on the chat. Put in your Q&As. There's a Q&A box. Please do add in your questions. We do already have 10 or 11 questions that people have sent in. So we'll start with those. And I'll be monitoring, and no doubt the others will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A as well. So without further ado, let's go for it. So our first question is how has the perception of analytics changed to now, and what are analytics teams really expected to deliver? So something for you, John. Yeah.
Sure. As everybody's aware, we've been doing this for decades. Bill and I have been going back and forth for 4 decades on this. The first thing that I want to make sure that we're all aware of is, the word analytics has so many definitions, and it's stretched in so many different ways. I have people ask me, I'd like to build an analytic. And I'm like, okay, great. What would you like to do? And they describe to me a dashboard, a business intelligence dashboard, or something that is just a backward looking understanding of a trend or something like that. In my opinion, and I don't mean to be offensive, that's not an analytic. That's a report. Where in my opinion, analytics starts is at the top end of statistics. You have descriptive statistics, average, mean, mode, those distributions, those kind of things. Those are not analytics in my opinion either. So when you get to advanced statistics, predictive, prescriptive, optimization, simulation, now we're talking about analytics. And we've had these for a long time. These have been around since the 50s in operational research. It used to be that, people would think, well, in analytic, I don't really understand that. And the people that do it, I don't understand them either. So I'm not really sure if we're going to be able to get this, because those people, are usually off in some, remote location. Now what we're seeing, and I'm seeing it in my day job, is that the C-level executives are starting to ask questions in board meetings and in operational meetings. It happened this last week where the CEO turned to someone at the C-level and said, we really need to get John's team to look at this, because now we're getting an understanding from, C-level executives, CEOs, who are generally not coming from data science, you know, they're coming from operations, manufacturing, marketing, sales, something like that. Those people are actually asking informed questions about what analytics can do. So we've gone from something that was a backroom, almost IT-ish kind of, specialty arena to an area and a time when executives are asking the right questions and directing people like me and my team to help them make decisions around strategy and how to drive the business forward. So in my opinion, that's the evolution.
Okay, so that's really interesting, because that evolution from MI to BI to analytics and to advanced analytics is, I was on a call yesterday where somebody was talking about MI, and it just struck me as one of those things which is such a backward looking thing. So Andrea, you've been in this industry now for over 15 years, and you've been working, straddling between BI.
Mere child.
Straddling between BI and analytics. How
Yes.
do you see the progression for analytics teams?
Yeah, look, I had the amazing opportunity of seeing the transformation, the full path. Indeed, what John mentioned earlier, the backward, reporting, descriptive analytics. That was the expectation 10 years ago, between 10 and 15 years ago. The role has evolved. I think at that point, we were seen, practitioners of analytics were seen as servers, like providers of information.
Yep.
And now, if I look at the current status, what analytics teams should do, also back to the question that was asked, they are actually leaders of change, of transformation. The company is rethinking itself through analytics. And of course, I mean, you mentioned business intelligence, Samir, and and the rest of analytics. Then it's all a naming convention. I like to think that analytics is like the broader kind of area where you have descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics as three different levels of sophistication, and of course increasing potential value that you give back to the company. But I mean, it's just a naming convention, or some in my book, for instance, I say business intelligence versus advanced analytics, and the full thing is called analytics. But to be honest, this is just
so you lump those two together. But they're on this kind of value chain across the business.
Yeah, because they are sort of like three levels of the same single transformational path that companies go through.
And I think I like the idea of the fact that you've brought change, the element of change into it, because as John pointed out, with his finger, it's something that's definitely lost within a lot of organizations. Bill, what's your view and your take on this particular idea that the perception of analytics teams have changed over time, and equally, where do you think that's changed? Just not in the executive level, but also in the operational layers.
When we talk about effective analytic teams, I think the expectation is those teams are going to deliver quantifiable economic value. I think there's not, as John talked about reports and dashboards. Yeah. I mean, there's very little value knowing what happened. Much more value is trying to predict what's likely to happen. And so I think what we're seeing in effective and more mature analytic teams is this idea around how do we create value. In fact, you probably can see in my chart back here, a lot of conversations recently around how do you understand the intent of what the organization is trying to accomplish? That is, what are the KPIs and metrics against which they're going to measure success? Trying to improve customer retention, trying to reduce unplanned operational downtime, trying to keep freshman students from flunking out. So what is the intent? And then as an analytics team, once I understand the intent, I can go through a process of defining then how value is created for the organization. I got to define it first before I can ever apply data and analytics. If I don't know how the organization creates value, if I don't know the KPIs and metrics against which you're going to measure success and progress and success, I have no idea where to apply data and analytics. And I know that we all can relate to the common misperception that I'm sure we've all experienced multiple times, is when somebody walks up to us and says, "Hey, I got this data. Tell me what's interesting." Well, how do you define interesting? What do you mean by interesting, right? And so there is a big transformation. Andrea talked about this transformation. John talked about this transformation that the analytics team is no longer just in the back office dealing with the byproduct of the operational systems, that data is no longer just a byproduct of the operational systems. For more and more organizations, data is the business.
So on top of that, you've talked about how analytics teams have to be, and I think this is what Andrea was saying, instead of being order takers, should be on the front foot, being in front of the executives or the operational teams. But do you see the changes in the analytics teams? Because Bill, you just mentioned something around taking data and saying, show me some insights. Well, what are the things that we've done to inject the frameworks or thinking to offer the business to say, well, actually, why don't we start the process of, why are we doing this? But do you think that those narratives are in place now, or is that education still needs to be done across analytics teams in the business? John?
I think it still needs to be done. When I was a young data scientist learning at the knee of Schmarzo, one of the things that we were always trying to do was, trying to figure out, what do the brand managers and group brand managers and executives want? We've gotten to now, we've been doing this for a while. What I've been doing in my day job is that I listen, and I have my team listen very carefully to subject matter experts and clinical and plasma operations and retail and all the different parts of the business. And what we have been able to do over the last couple of years is we listen carefully, we go back, we gather the data, we do the analytics, and then we come back to them and say, well, we did the exploratory data analysis. We understand the shape of the business. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to take it and move forward and do some predictive, prescriptive simulation optimization work. Now, what that does is it shocks the executives usually because, their perception of what the business is doesn't really align with what it truly is from a data perspective. And then you've already given them value that they didn't even know existed, didn't even know was possible, didn't even really expect. So you've given them something that now they can think about, talk to their operations about, and it gives you a chance to then even get further out ahead of them, do planning and lay out and say, hey, we're going to do this project and it's going to take 2 months or 6 months or a year or whatever. And generally we're doing things like we're predicting when donors are going to churn. We're predicting and prescribing which prices they should manage and change. And these are things that managers generally have not had this kind of support before. They've generally been doing decisions by gut or a little bit of data in Excel. So the point is that if you listen carefully and you think about the business as a business owner, even though you don't own it, you're a support function, you're helping people do their jobs better, you can actually be doing work that's 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of what they expect. And then you will be on the front foot and you will be a trusted advisor to them. Now, you want to make sure that you understand that it's not your job to run their business. It's your job to give them intelligence to help them run their business better. And if you have that attitude and that orientation, your job is going to be much easier.
No, that is good. Does anybody want to jump in on that?
So there is still a lot of education needs to take place.
Yep.
And the question is it education of the data science team? Is it education of the business stakeholders? And the real answer is yes. It's bringing them together to teach them the highly collaborative process of data science is a scientific process. It's full of trying things, experimenting, exploring, failing, learning again, failing again. And that's not something you say, well, the data science team is going to do that. No, you got to do it hand in hand with the business. And this is part of the challenge on both sides. From the technology side, we come from a BI world where you didn't experiment on designing a star schema. You screw it up, you got fired, right? And so we now have a new sort of approach that says we need to embrace experimentation and trial. And we also need to do that on the business side. We're making predictions. They're not going to be 100%. And so there's a lot we need to do to teach the culture of how you collaborate, how you apply a scientific method around this collaboration with the goal of how do we create value where value can only be defined by the business stakeholders.
Yeah, Andrea, I think you wanted to come in on
Yes.
that, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, to run the transformation that John mentioned and to have the cultural element that Bill mentioned, you basically you see another aspect, which is it's a novel aspect of the perception of analytics teams in organization. They are the evangelists of data transformation, of digital transformations in the organizations. And so with this, it comes the responsibility of, for instance, training everyone on a basic layer of digital and analytics fluency. I had the amazing opportunity to look after broad fluency programs for the full organization, not just for the practitioners, for everyone. And that thing in its simplicity, of course, there are complexities related to the broad scale of and the different sort of backgrounds of people, but in its simplicity is making a huge difference. That's probably the single biggest enabler of the digital transformation, to have everyone understanding the language and understanding what data and algorithms can do when they're used well.
And just a comment from Warren, most companies I work with, their data isn't even ready to make use of insights. They don't usually know how to even take the first step. It seems so massive. So I think one of those things, they're stuck in the past rather than forward looking. I think this comes back to something that most of the people have spoken about. It's the frameworks and the way that you approach the business questions and identifying what kind of value and outcomes they want, rather than, as John and Bill both said it, hey, there's a bunch of data and get some insights out of it. Go on, Bill, you've got your hand up.
So by the way, let me add to this. So I agree that don't start with the data, right? Don't strive to be data driven.
Correct.
Strive to be value driven.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Understand where the sources of value are and take the time to understand where value is, and then go through a process of collaboration with the business stakeholders and the data science team to identify which data and analytics can be useful to support that value.
I think that's true. John, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Bill's right. Absolutely. Bill's always right. But, the thing about starting out and being data driven is that you're usually starting with the IT function, and that's problematic. My first year at CSL, I just passed my third year. I just felt like I was just getting cut up all the time and getting beat up, by the security team and the network architecture team and the different people that were just not allowing us to have access. And we finally fought through that, and now we can get access to pretty much anything in the organization, but we move the data out of IT governed systems and we put them into systems that we own, and then we run them like proof of concepts and pilots. So we look to deliver value in the matter of hours, days, or weeks. We don't have a whole bunch of governance slowing us down. Of course, we secure the data. We use, good privacy standards. We adhere to Gdpr and the California Privacy Act and all those different things, but we move at the speed of thought. And that's what the business likes about our team, is that we're seen as a rapid prototyping and value-driven organization. We get people showing up all the time saying, hey, I want you to do this. And we're like, look, that's a transactional system that needs to be governed and managed by GXP and GMP and all these other policies. They're like, yeah, but you move so much faster than other people. And I'm like, I get that. But, we do that in the area of analytics, not in the transactional systems.
Sure. So I'm going to move on to the next question, and thank you all for that. And you can offer. I'm sure a lot of the questions will overlap with each other. But this one's from Amy Sinclair. How do you consider the interrelationships and operations with business stakeholders when building analytics teams? So I think that's more from. Yeah. Sorry. Go on, Andrea.
No. Go ahead. Is there a second part of the question? Maybe more difficult that I cannot answer. So.
That was the go for it. Go for it.
Right. No, I think it's an amazing question, because that's super important. Basically, ironically, the effectiveness of the organization is not driven by endogenous factors like the quality of the people you have in, or their level of expertise, their seniority. Actually is driven by the single thing that I've seen, at least from organization I had the opportunity to see. The single most important thing is how they interact with the rest of the business units. with the rest of the business partners, essentially. If they are embedded analysts, they could be easily end up being report producers. That's the first thing that people would ask.
And by report producers, you're saying, hey, just give me that data, or just give me a report on how many widgets we sold last week. And that's
exactly. Extraction of data points, that's the initial question. So I think to avoid that, first of all, the organization, it doesn't make sense to start from an organization where you embed analysts, embed analytics practitioners in business teams without any sort of like a higher level matrix organization that takes care of them and sets strategy for them. But on top of this like more like organizational thing, I think you need sponsorship. So top management needs to be aware that the only good use of analytics is when they drive transformation and they push the full organization from descriptive analytics, which is the starting point. Okay, we're good with that, all the way up to prescriptive analytics. And so you need to have sponsorship from the top, business sponsorship, not IT. It's not enough to have the CIO on your side. You need to have business sponsorship from people from other business functions, marketing, brand, sales, and HR and other business function. So I think these are the two things. But it's a good question to ask, because it's the single most important thing to my
So you're talking about an organizational structure around particular teams that then either start with the foundational elements and the sort of the sides of governance and so on, and then sort of start to understand what the strategy is and go into the parts of the organization that they would then provide value and so on. Who do you feel this C-level position for this kind of team that's an amoeba-like team? It sounds like that to me, that it's like an amoeba-like team. Who do you think is best suited in that aspect to be running and driving the strategy and moving these teams forward to provide that business value?
I've learned this from John's book, so I let him answer, because he's explained
Go for it, John,
in his book.
That was a good segue, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you, Andrea. Absolutely. I talk about this a lot in the book, that it's a transformational function that you're driving in the end with data and analytics. And it comes down, your effectiveness and efficiency and your value realization comes down to your ability to understand the change management capability in your organization. So when you start an analytics project, an advanced analytics project, you need to partner with the C-level executive or EVP or SVP or VP that owns that area, and get them to understand that, if you are going to truly drive change through a program as opposed to a project, which you're just delivering a number, they need to understand that at the end of this effort, there's then going to be a change management effort where you're going to be integrating these models into processes that need to change. And if they don't want to undertake that level of change to realize the value that are coming from the models, then you might not want to do the project. You might want to put that on the back burner until they're ready to undertake that kind of change. So it's not an either or, that the analytics group is driving the strategy or the business group is driving it. You're collaboratively doing it together. And some lead, the analytics team leads in the beginning when you're doing the analytics, the business team leads when you're doing the process re-engineering. So it's not an either or, it's an and it just depends on who's leading at that phase.
Phil, do you want to step in?
Yeah, I want to build on what Andrea's point was. And I want you to imagine an effective healthcare team. You've got physicians, nurses, therapists, dietitians, but you don't have a customer. Well, how effective are you going to be without a customer? And so when I think create an effective analytics team, the customer has to be part of that process. It has to be integrated into that process. The idea that you have a data science team with data scientists and ML engineers and data engineers and feature engineers, without a customer, it actually makes no sense. And so I think it first and foremost, the customer has to be involved in the team, not just on a periodic basis. Day 0, day 1, day 2, they're involved throughout this iterative process. And this amoeba form that you talked about, Samir, really embodies itself in what I like to call organizational improvisation. It's like, how does a great soccer team work, right? You don't have
football.
Yeah. Or you don't have a coach sitting above them saying, Bill, do this, Andrea, do this, John, do this, right? They have a common mission, they have a common glossary, they have a common terminology, right? They know what they're working together, and that's how an effective analytics team works. And you can move players in and out of these teams because you have common mission and stuff, and still maintain operational integrity. So again, these effective teams must include the customer, and the customer for us, if we're creating value, is understand the business stakeholders and bring them in on day 1.
So, you know what, from everything everybody said, to me, it's always back to the why, the purpose. Why are we doing this stuff? But then to John's point, it's about the business thinks they know their business, but as soon as John's team or, Andrea's team start to delve and look into the data, there's actually different data points that tell us the business is doing other stuff that they might not be seeing. So that's the value piece that is exceptional, I think, when analytics teams generate insight, but for action rather than just saying, hey, I've got some stuff here.
So can I build on that? Because I think you're spot on. What's interesting here is I would argue that the business stakeholders, they know their business.
Absolutely.
They know what decisions they're trying to make.
Yeah.
They know the decision, but they don't know, virtue of the data and analytics, is that the answers have changed. And that's what the data science team can bring forward.
I think you're right, Bill. I think there's something there that you just said. They know the decisions they need to make. They know the decisions they need to make now, right? But they may. So here's the thing that I often find. When I ask teams, either executive teams or operational teams, what business questions aren't you asking? They scratch their head and think, well, aren't we asking the right stuff right now? So actually, as they start to think, okay, let's get into a room and start thinking about let's rip it apart. You talked about KPIs and measures, but let's just come from a business questions perspective. They start to ask very interesting questions that they said, actually, we've never asked that before. So can we actually answer that? And I think that's what you're meaning by the answers they get to will be different to what they started off with.
And I'm very cautious about questions, because questions are interesting and provocative, but they're not necessarily actionable.
You have to get down to the point of how do you link the question to the decision and the action. That's the thing you need to do.
That's the key. Yes.
Yeah. So if you just have a question, I agree with you. But if you can show that lineage down to the action and the decision that needs to be taken, then that's the way that you gather the people. Andreas looks like he's turned his
webcam is not working.
But
I can hear you and I can speak, and I'll reconnect from another device for the web.
Okay, no problem.
And I think one other thing to think about questions is that questions are great. I encourage everyone to ask all sorts of questions. And we get people coming and asking us questions and saying, we'd like to understand, the mindset of people when they're thinking about when they might be able to make a decision.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting question. It really is very intriguing.
Yeah, it is.
But I am not inside the head of everybody.
Of everybody. Exactly. Yes.
I can't quantitatively measure that. That is not a data science question.
But you can spin the question around, right? You can spin the question around. You can say, well, let's explore the question. And then maybe there's a new question that appears that something that we can do. And, it can be more tangible then.
There's proxy information that can be used, from concrete behavior and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting to have people phrase the questions without thinking about it very much.
Yeah.
Because if people think about it too much, they take all the power out of their original question.
Correct.
So I always encourage people to not think about it too much.
Yeah.
Just show up and ask the question. Now, your original question is probably off base, and it can't be action because it's just impossible.
Yeah.
But as Samir said, you can twist it and turn it till we can get to a point of where you can measure it, you can predict it, you can prescribe it, you can do some really interesting things with it. So, you know, I'm a big fan of questions. I'm a big fan of people just getting it out on the table without refining it too much.
Yeah, no, agreed. I'm going to go on to the next question. If anybody wants to jump in, they can. But so we just had a comment from Mark Paradise. True brainstorming, no question or thought, is bad, and everything should come out, I think.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
yes.
they like to say all ideas are worthy of consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to explore and work through them, right?
Unless they come from Samir.
Then they're absolutely amazing, John. Then they are
Ouch.
amazing. Counteract that with, oh, look, John's just left.
Oh,
yeah.
So Samir does control the overall thing. So now we got to be careful.
Exactly. Yeah. And as John says, that is love. That's absolutely true. So I think there's two questions here that are sort of melding into each other. A lot of people have asked about organizational structure or operating model, which I think is on a lot of people's minds right now. So there's two questions here, and we'll bring them together. How to distribute analytic skills throughout the company. Moreover, what are the required roles and capabilities to build the analytics team? And the sub question then is, what's the best analytic operating model for success around those teams? And the second question came from Arvind Morali, and the first question I think was from Amy Sinclair as well.
Okay. Do you want me to jump on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, there's lots of questions about, you know, analytics teams, how to build them, and that's the primary reason why I wrote my latest book. I do feel that the organizational culture and the orientation of the manager have a direct influence on the team that you build. I talk about teams that are made up of artisans, people who are very creative. I see data science as a very creative endeavor. Yeah. So, you know, those people, you know, they're self-contained. They do all the projects. They do every element of a project themselves, from data acquisition, integration, feature engineering, model building, production, deployment, working with subject matter experts, executives, all that. They do it all. Now, those are unicorns, and they're difficult to find, and they're expensive. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have the factory approach, where you have a couple people in each of those stations, and the data moves and the work moves through that element, and then you can have a hybrid approach. So, you know, it's really up to you. I personally, as a data science leader, love to have an artisan-based team, but I am instituting a factory based element right now to support those artisans. Now, as far as people are always asking about centralized and decentralized, that's and federated, and that's another question too. Now, I think that you can have a federated, decentralized approach that is very successful. We have a centralized center of excellence. We also have embedded data scientists in clinical and manufacturing and supply chain, and we do projects collaboratively. Sometimes those groups own the projects, sometimes we own the projects. We loan and lend experts back and forth, and it works very well.
How do you manage that effectively? Just from a, you know, decentralized, federated model to where you've got this factory piece. And I think there's, you know, it's a very, to me, if you're lending people out and, you know, and giving them away for certain periods of time, how do you actually, in a big organization like yours, manage that process?
Well, people, you know, have to have ownership and accountability. Those are two of the touchstones of everything that you do in every organization. So, you know, a project is usually owned by a group, either my group or a different group owns it, and they have the responsibility and accountability of making sure that that project is successful. The factory team I own, and the pieces of work that go through that, I'm responsible and accountable for. We do have and do work for all parts of the organization. So, you know, it's on my, you know, lap and head to make sure that it gets done correctly. When I loan a data scientist to a different project, for that part of the project, I have no responsibility for it, other than they may consult with me on the best way to do it, or smart ways, or roadblocks they run into. But when that person's on that team for that part of the work, they have a different manager.
And can I ask you one other question, because this is mind-blowing for me right now. How do you govern the things that go on between model building and making sure standards and best practice are in that federated, decentralized model versus what you're doing in the factory, because they may not gel in, and how do you then get that into making sure those things get into production and are really steadfast in terms of those principles?
Well, you do your best to disseminate, the best practices and organizational standards. There are laws, GDPR and California privacy and things like that you have to adhere to. You must adhere to.
Yeah.
There are differences between Australia, Europe, and the United States on standards. So wherever the project is being run, you'll adhere to those local laws and standards. So it's not that it's monolithic. You're trying to do the best you can for each project, given the constraints you have from the legal and compliance and governance and corporate environment. So if you think you're going to put a framework, a rigid framework over all of this work on a global basis, you're going to be frustrated and upset.
And that's what I wanted to. Sorry, Andrea. I think Andrea wants to jump in here.
I just wanted to add, an element, since John talked about the distributed versus centralized approach, which is, a recurrent, a recurrent question. No? I think we should consider also an element of, a dynamic element of transformation. So you start from maybe a centralized model, because at first you can have more control, easier governance. I saw there was a question, how to manage governance and centralized stuff, right? So you start central. You also use this center of excellence as a way to boost analytics fluency and disseminate it across the organization. And then after, well, the time depends on the speed of the organization, on the business, on the industry as well. But, after maybe some months of year, it's easier to move to a more, John called it federated, decentralized approach, which I love as a term. I've heard also speaking about like hub and spoke model. Yes. It's kind of like the same. Similar thing.
Kind of. I think John. I think federated decentralized is totally out there in the business, but the hub and spoke still has that central feed, that standardized mechanism in the middle that then feeds out to these hubs that are very much either independent but can go back to the center for information and standards and governance and data sets and so on. Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Andre. Figure out. Sorry.
No. I just want to say that the trend is decentralization. So it's like there is a trend of decentralization. The leader needs to take steps, baby steps towards it.
Let me ask you a quick question before you jump in, Bill. I'm interested to understand whether you think democratization and decentralization are the same thing, Andrea.
I wouldn't say so. Democratization is such a powerful trend. I've seen used in multiple ways. No, for instance, the access of data should be sort of like democratized to as many people as possible, so that they can actually build their own artisanal analytics as well. I guess from an organizational point of view, there are two separate things, because it says this. Yeah.
I ask because some people put them in the same bracket sometimes. Sorry, what's that, John?
They're not the same.
No, they're not. They're not the same at all. You're right. So
democratization is a mindset. Decentralization is an org structure.
Yeah.
I wanted to build
on. Go
ahead. John, the hub and spoke. I've seen that being used very effectively, where the hub is basically the factory.
Yeah.
Right. Their job is to engineer these data and analytic economic assets, not accounting assets. I've had that debate on LinkedIn recently. Their job is to build out these assets, and that the spokes are out there collaborating with the business around value creation. Value creation happens in the spokes, and there has to be this high level of collaboration. John talked about sharing, moving people between the factory and the hub and the spoke. So you've got lots of common training and common mindsets. But to me, the hub is responsible for rebuilding these composable, reusable, continuously learning and adapting analytic assets. And a lot of those assets, the first iteration of them actually gets built out in the spokes in collaboration with the business. Yeah, there's some standards in place regarding what tools are using and such, but that drives that ability to have the value creation outside that then gets scaled and operationalized by the factory.
By the factory, yeah, absolutely. But I think John's view is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, even with the decentralized and federated model, do those teams push out and scale their models and productionize them and then manage those? Or is the factory overseeing that and doing something that's, you know, in conjunction with development?
Usually, the team that are building the models ends up maintaining them and keeping them up to speed and refreshing them. You know, it's very difficult to take a model that was built out in the hub and bring it into, or out in the spoke and bring it into the hub and have the data scientists understand what it's doing.
Been done, yeah.
As I said,
unless that team comes back with them as part of the transfer.
Yeah, or someone from that, or someone's been embedded in that team. Yeah.
And usually it doesn't work that way.
So that's where I get back to this. Sorry, John.
No, it's all right. And that's where you get when, you know, someone's working on a very specific model, specialized model in supply chain, bringing that back to people who have no supply chain experience, that's not going to work.
Yeah. Andre, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, no, because on these dynamics of hub and spoke transfer, essentially, that, you know, John mentioned, I think what I saw working pretty well was to have the innovation bit that comes with the prototyping of the idea in the spokes, essentially, so in the centralized unit. Then the interest for the spoke would be to actually get into on a factory line so that it can drive productivity. Of course, the prototype would be difficult to keep up with, very manual maybe process for the ETL bit that needs some whatever refreshes and manual administration. And so that's kind of, it's a dynamic that seems to work, because then the factory, so the hub, can not only learn, reapply, of course, because they should have more visibility across similar business needs across the other business units, and also learn from this, understand what type of skills, maybe specialized skills are required for the factory to work even faster, even better the next time a similar business need comes from the spokes. So it's an interesting dynamics of mutual benefit between spokes and hubs in this organization.
Well, I'm going to stop right there if you don't mind. I'm just going to do a book giveaway, Bill, because I've just seen the time, and I'm sure people are gagging for getting a book. So actually, the first book is Bill's book.
Oh no!
And, yeah. So get ready at your keyboards. Not you two, not you, Bill. So here's a popular question. Get ready. What is the name of the character who leads the team of soldiers and crazies in the popular TV show, The A-Team? First three people who can answer that. Oh no, not Schmarzo. Colleen. I think people are maybe I asked the wrong question.
No, it's a good question.
Hosha, it's not Murdoch. Doofus Rex. I have no idea who that is, John. Face man. Hosha, do you know what? I'm going to give it to Colleen. I'm going to at least give you something, Hosha, because you've put into.
Well, at least Murdoch was on the show.
Yes, yes, he was. Yeah.
Hannibal Smith.
Hannibal Smith. That's right.
Actually, that was my team called me Hannibal Smith.
Did they? Why is that? Because you
I was
a big cigar?
Because I was the leader of the A-Team. We were the A-Team, and that's kind of how our data science team looked at how we engaged.
I see. Okay, so you were the A-Team. Okay, so Harsha, Colleen, and John. I don't know who Doofus Rex is, but I think we're going to have to discount that one because Naledi has said Mr. T. So as long as you reference the person from the actual A-Team, I'll give it to you. So Colleen, Harsha and Naledi. I think that's Naledi.
Naliba?
Naledi, yeah, Naledi.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, awesome. Right, we're going to go to go get your trumpet.
I love it when a plan comes together.
Pity the fool. Okay, enough of that now. Next question. John's just bemused. Right. Okay. So we've talked about that. Here's an interesting question from Brian. I think it's Gillet or Brian Gillett. I'm not too sure how you say the surname, but there we go. How do you decide to build your analytics in-house versus buying an analytics solution that comes with the data ingestion model, reports, and dashboards? So I'm just gonna elaborate on that. From where he sits, he's seeing the availability of data tools exploding and cloud data warehouses making it easier for analytics teams to build their own analytics. He's trying to understand if leaders in the industry are seeing a trend of building analytics in-house increasing due to these available tools, or if they are turning to third-party solutions while the analytics teams focuses on more governance and strategy.
No, I don't think so. Not from my experience anyway. I mean, these teams are expensive investments, and if they're not focused on building advanced analytic models that are giving strategic value, that's driving economic realization, then you're using them in the wrong way.
Wrong way, yeah.
It sounds to me, Brian, that you're talking about something akin to what we saw decades ago with SAP and ERP systems and Salesforce with CRM systems. In my opinion, you can use those third parties for standardization, but they're never really going to drive real differentiation in your business. So if this is an advanced analytic model that's in supply chain efficiency and logistics, that's a well-worn area and a well-known area. And I really couldn't, in good faith, dedicate my team to do it, because you can buy really good models off in the marketplace. So if it's something that everybody's done for 20 years, then yeah, go out and buy it. But if it's really something that's going to make a difference in your business, you should be building it.
Can I add on John really quick?
Yeah,
John said something really key. John said something really key. What are your points of differentiation and what are your points of parity? You buy for parity and you build for differentiation. That's John's answer was spot on.
Thank you, Bill.
And if I may add, I think also
absolutely.
You need to have in the organization the muscles for building stuff, and that's not something you can improvise. It's built over years. When the business need comes, it might come at the time you don't expect. You need to prototype quickly the way analytics can make a difference there, and you need to have the capabilities, the expertise, and the organization to support that. So if you solely rely on third-party off-the-shelves tools, you don't have those muscles, and it's a problem.
So on top of that, there's a question that's coming from Corey. What type of analytical roles and skills can be outsourced? What should be kept in-house? I think it's a valid question in terms of where we are. You talk about the muscle, and that flexing.
Yeah, the areas that I look for in outsourcing to support my team, and that's where we're using the factory model, is in repetitive tasks. Data acquisition, data cleaning, data integration, data management. Those are areas that take skills. You have to be skilled and intelligent in those areas. You have to know what you're doing. But the real value comes in feature engineering, feature selection, model building, putting models into production and maintaining them. So you can outsource the early repetitive tasks around data management. The other parts, I haven't seen a good way to do that.
And you, Andrea, have you seen, have you experienced anything that's similar?
I mean, the outsourcing of the non-value added thing, of course, makes a lot of sense. So we should also consider that with the now we give it for granted, but with the cloud approach paradigm, many of those activities are already outsourced by definition, right? So all the you know, the physical infrastructure and also the you know, the platform operations that might be already essentially outsourced. You want to keep the, let's say, the smart part of the company that requires transformation, and also vertical knowledge on the and business expertise to understand what's going on, right? Which is something you cannot outsource.
So John, Bill, just before you step in, John, you mentioned something that's really interesting. You talked about the repetitive tasks, the data integration, data management. I think there's some things there that need to be done in-house, but there sounds like there's quite a separation between the data team and the analytics team. And by that, I'm trying to understand from a data governance perspective or data quality perspective, you know, there's lots of people who manage platforms and systems and metadata and, you know, provision data, et cetera, as you said. How much of that can you outsource? Because I think that's the difference between the data analytics teams in terms of what their responsibilities are. What do you do in-house that you just cannot?
Yeah, let's be clear.
Yeah.
You know, teams, large organizations have many teams that are focused on data governance and data management and databases in the transactional world.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that.
No, exactly.
That's not what we're talking about.
Okay.
Now, you know, in the analytics realm, you know, Bill and I used to work in the data warehousing paradigm, where we worked in the ETL and the structuring and the star schema and snowflake schema and all that kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about either. What I'm talking about is more of a data lake, you know, kind of agile paradigm. I hate agile, but a nimble paradigm, you know, where those things that data work is intimately tied with the modeling work. So, you know, we're not talking about monolithic efforts. What we're talking about is focused efforts that are providing and generating data assets that are tied to an analytical pipeline. Now, that generally in my group ends up being part of every data scientist's work, but it's repetitive and it can be outsourced to a different part, you know, a different party or different part of the organization. So you can decouple that and you can outsource it somewhere. So I just want to make sure that's the environment we're talking about.
Yeah. Your what I see is the sort of more innovation type, but you still need to do some of that wrangling and cleaning and, you know, but you don't do the pure. You just don't do pure governance of it. And so
it's more challenging than most people understand too, because you know, Bill knows this. You know, when we've been building advanced analytic models, we may be integrating 3 internal sources and 5 external
from external
data. So you know, you can't go to someone and say, "Oh, please do this." They don't know how to do it. You know, you have to have done it and then be able to give them the recipe and says, okay, you're going to do this every Tuesday or every Monday or every first of every month, you know, and then they can turn the crank, but you know, they're not going to be able to do it right out of the box.
Go on, Bill.
Yeah, Samir, well, I think part of this question on, you know, when do you outsource and when do you bring in also depends a lot on your organization's analytics maturity. Yeah, absolutely. If you're just starting off and you don't have any data scientists, you don't have any data engineers, you probably do rely on, you know, consultants and outsourcing a lot of this stuff. But it also kind of depends what's your organization's view of the role of analytics to create new sources of customer product and operational value. If the company doesn't have a vision for analytics, then you're just going to be outsourcing, and I wouldn't work there, right? But if the company has a view that we're going to use outsourcing as a way to build our analytic muscle, as Andrea talked about, then that makes sense. But you got to, you know, begin with an end in mind. What are you trying to achieve, and how does outsourcing help us get there? So again, it really depends. You know, John's working in an organization that's damn analytics mature. And so they're not outsourcing much of anything because they're building that analytics muscle. Other organizations are in different spots. So you have to do what's right for you. But it all gets back down to what is your vision? What is their organization's, your executive's vision of the role of data and analytics to power the business models? But
that goes back to having that data and analytics strategy in the first place, because that's the, you know, that's where you're saying we're gonna use that as a way to oh, my light's just gone off. As a way to
was there a brownout in London there? What's going on?
No, the other one's working, but the other one switched off for some weird reason. That's pretty strange. Maybe it's overheated. Yeah. Anyway, so you'll see how I'll just bring that over like that. Oh no, it looks even worse. So that completely took me away from my thoughts and my ramblings. So so we'll have to talk about it another time. Oh gosh, I just cannot remember. I think John, you're right. Go on, Andrea.
No, I was reading one of the questions linked to what we're talking, which is data science is usually time consuming from Marina.
Yes,
from
I was just
so far.
Yeah.
Can you share your thoughts? And
yeah.
Well, data science is time consuming for, I would say, like two reasons. One, the 80% of your time anyway is on getting the data right. And that one is time consuming by definition. And there is not a lot we can do about that. Actually, there is what we can do about that, having, harmonized master data, have a clear data governance, and do the, clean up work up front so that you reduce a little bit the
effort,
time required for that.
Yeah.
The second thing, the second reason why it's time consuming is the iteration bit. Building a machine learning model never works the first time you do it. You always need to go back. But the thing is, like, when you do these iterations, you need to add business. You inject your business expertise as you do this because you interpret what's going on and you go through the loop. So this is not something. I mean, that's the fascinating but also the smart part of the process. And so that one, it's cannot be avoided. There are more and more capabilities like AutoML, automatic machine learning, where you simplify that bit. However, I think it is time consuming. What you can definitely do is simplify the data, the ETL part. But you want also to accept that yes, it is time consuming for a reason, because you are adding value. That's the time. It's a good investment of time.
And I'll add on to that as well. Andrea is absolutely right. The other part of it that I talk to executives about is that we're also going to drive innovation. We are going to experiment. We are going to push the envelope. So we are going to try to do things that have not been done before, and we are going to fail in some respects. So, it can't be understated that takes time.
How much time do you spend on the innovation piece, John?
I tell people that we put in a fudge factor of at least 3 months in the first time that we do something, because we have to be able to try it, fail, fail, go back and forth. And Andrea is absolutely right. It cannot be understated that, we go off and do things, and we have subject matter experts and managers involved in the process. We know math, we know data, we'll build our first model. And then the experts will come in, the subject matter experts will come in and say, oh, that's illegal in Switzerland. You can't do that. And we're like, well, that would have been nice if we'd have known that in the beginning.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Or, hey, we don't sell in California because we don't have a product that's compliant with the laws there.
Yeah.
So, it is iterative, just as Andrea said, and it's no fault of anybody's. It's hard to remember all the different caveats and conditions and problems that are around the world. It's just iterative, and it takes time.
Go ahead, Bill.
I think part of the challenge that I think we all face in the data science world, and given how young we are in this space, is that a lot of people have this software mindset. And with software, you define the requirements for success. In data science, you discover them. And it's hard to say this is going to take X number of weeks in the discovery process, because you don't know. Like John said, he builds in 3 months of this innovation process because you're discovering. And so a lot of the problems, for example, I've had with product management organizations when they're trying to figure out, well, I want to be able to integrate an analytics into this, and here's our timeline. Can you develop the analytics by that time frame? I've got to say, I don't know, right? I can't define the requirements for this success. I have to discover them. And so there's this natural, I think, frustration with people who don't understand the fact that the data science process is highly innovative. It's highly ideation, and you're trying to explore and you're going to fail and try again. And your first, as Andrea said, your first model is going to suck, and the first 50 probably are going to suck, and it's going to take a while to get there. But it's that whole mindset problem. And Samir now doesn't have any lights. Pretty soon you're going to go totally dark there. It'll be like really cool.
He's looking very sinister.
It's going to be a blackout. Well, I haven't got my axe,
yeah.
but I think I should have an axe, John, shouldn't I?
You should. Everyone should have an axe.
So on that note, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another book giveaway, just so that, you know, while I'm in this sinister mode. This is going to be Andrea's book. So, right, here's the question. And if you listen to me at the beginning, you'll know what this is. Who wrote the song When Doves Cry for Andrea's book?
That one I know the answer to. 1, 2.
Scott, well done. Andrew,
Schmarzo,
well
yes.
done.
Oh, wait.
One
we
more.
got it.
One more. Harsha. Harsha got it right this time. So Harsha. So we've got Scott, Andrew, and Harsha. You all get Andrea's book. Well done. Fantastic. It is, Harsha, Purple Rain time. Absolutely. Yep. I'm going to go on to the next question, and congratulations to you all for getting that right. Where is it? Okay, I think this is more about scaling and building and growing teams. So how do you balance the current capabilities of the team with growth potential when hiring for this new team, or as you're growing into that you know, specific markets or so on? That's from Jason Felker, who I'm not too sure is here today. Yeah, go ahead. Who wants to? How do you balance the current capabilities of the team with growth potential when hiring for the team? Who wants to have a crack at that?
I'll jump on it. Sure.
Yep.
You know, the way I look at it is that, you know, when people come in, we're looking for, you know, curiosity, you know, engagement, intelligence, honesty, transparency, those kind of things. We're also looking to add people who are specialists in certain areas. On my team, we have someone who's a neural network expert. We have someone who's an advanced statistics expert. We have someone else who's an NLP, NLG expert. So we're looking for specialty expertise to add to our team. So that's one thing that we look for. We're also looking for younger people. You know, we bring people in as early as freshmen in their undergraduate. And we have them as interns, and we will have them intern with us all the way through their undergraduate. And we've only in one instance have not made an offer to someone. So, you know, we look for people who are, you know, in their undergraduate studies, PhDs, MBAs. We tend to bias towards younger staff members because there's a whole bunch of reasons why we do that, but I'll stop right there.
So John Hennessy has just mentioned, how about cultural social anthropologists? Which is quite an interesting.
Sure. If you can find one that has some background in data science, I'd hire them.
I think we need more and more of them, because machine learning is letting human beings being more human beings than they used to be. The repetitive part of the thought process is more and more going to machines. The cultural and human element of it will stay more and more with us. We do need cultural, social anthropologists, and we will need more and more of them.
Yeah, Andrea's right. When I was talking to the administration at University of Michigan in the School of Information, their introduction to R Python course has been taken by over 1 million people at this point.
Wow.
And the reason it's been taken by 1 million people is that they wrote it in with someone who is an artist or an anthropologist or a liberal arts major in mind. What they wanted to do and what they are doing is opening up coding to people who are not technologists. So they're sociologists, they're anthropologists, they're psychologists. And, you know, Andrea and Bill and I know this, you know, deep in our bones, that most of the analytics we're doing in the end of it get down to trying to understand human behavior. You know, we're trying to predict, you know, why people are going to do something or why they won't do something. That's the most valuable thing that we do is come up with quantitative predictions about human behavior.
But I think also what these types of different influences will bring, either, you know, social cultural anthropologists or whoever that might be. They'll bring different kinds of ways to think about people and reduce the amount of bias. There's always going to be bias, but have a different flavor of what people might be thinking and have different backgrounds. So I think that's going to be of interest to me and how it all works. Go on, Bill.
Yeah, the thing I would add, and I'm a broken record, as and every one of these shows, and I talk about the power of design thinking, about how do you bring in people who know how to get intimate with your customer. I love John's comment, right? Basically, all we're trying to do is predict human behaviors or product performance. Really, it boils down to those two things, right? We're always trying to understand either humans and products, and there's no better discipline out there for understanding human behaviors and design thinking and the methodology it has in forcing you to understand, walk with your customers. What are the jobs to be done? What are the pains? What are the gains? Walk along their customer journey maps and figure out what steps are they going through, a decision they're trying to make. What are the impediments, right? And so design thinking is really about getting intimate with your customers and understanding where and how they create value. It always comes back to value, right? So again, I think that design thinking is a really powerful characteristics. And I'll tell you right now that I got hooked on design thinking when I met with one of the senior data scientists at Google, and he told me that all their data scientists go to Stanford and take design thinking school classes. And I was like, what the hell is design thinking? So I went over there myself and took it and realized, oh my gosh, they're exactly right. If we are about predicting human behaviors, then design thinking is a great tool for helping us to understand how humans behave.
If you look back in the history of some of those seminal organizations that created what we know now as data science, Information Resources and IEC Nielsen are two of the foundational companies, and those companies all started their data science groups by hiring PhDs in psychology. That's the only people they hired. So this whole field is based on the work of a bunch of kooks that went to psychology school.
That's an interesting word.
I know them all. They are all kooks. There's no doubt about it.
I'm going to move on to the next question, which is from Bhushan Sardesai. So what is the role with the best growth opportunities in analytics teams? Is it sales and pre-sales, solution architect, or implementation delivery role?
Data engineer.
Okay.
Value engineer.
Value engineer, data engineer. Andrea?
Until 2 years ago, data scientist, now data engineer.
Yeah, unfortunately, the data scientist has taken the back seat. Data engineer is probably, to me, the sexiest job at the moment. Probably the more valued.
You said the job with the most growth potential.
Yes.
Yeah. It's certainly not the sexiest job. It's the hardest working.
It's the hardest, but it's now becoming the most well-paid and most in-demand job, I would say. So while we can say the data scientist is doing fancy algorithms, but I think
I like Harsh's point. The data economist.
Data economist. Yeah. He keeps coming back to that. Which I think you're going to have a conversation with him.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. It's really around. It gets back to this idea of value engineering and data, and how do you leverage data?
I like Dave's response. That's a good one. Unless you're British, then being a lorry driver is pretty popular. I think there was a meme going around earlier on where Boris Johnson calls the Queen and said, "Were you a truck driver in the Second World War?" Yeah. It's just silly.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, well done, Dave. I think the most in-demand job is being Schmarzo, but that's a tough one to get.
I mean, I don't think anybody could be Schmarzo.
We got to find somebody better to do that job, because I sure suck at it.
And on that note, I think we're going to do another book giveaway, and this time it's yours, John.
Dun, 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 dun.
There it is. The title of this very, very cool AMA. So, for John's book, everybody get ready. What is the title of the new James Bond movie?
Oh, God.
Ding, 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 ding.
It's the title's like all the other titles. They all kind of interrupt. Oh, wow. We got it. That was quick.
Oh, look at that. Harsha. Okay.
Wow, people are on top of this one.
Yeah. Look at that. Harsha, Corey. Hopefully I'm saying the names right. And Rena.
Yeah. Everybody got it.
So, I mean, that was a pretty easy one, right? Because it's everywhere at the moment. It's all over the place. Right. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you for all of that. Right. So Harsha's got first show, first day, going next Thursday.
Another day, or they're all kind of like all the bond titles now have dying in them, right?
Did you know the little bit about Tomorrow Never Dies with the Piers Brosnan one? It was supposed to be called Tomorrow Never Lies, and someone when they were I think when they were booking the title in or whatever, they just by mistake did Dies.
Really?
Yeah.
It actually makes sense given the sort of the story behind it.
Exactly, with the Murdoch-esque kind of, yeah, absolutely. Don't worry, Harsha, you got John's book. Yeah, you got so it's Harsha, Corey, and Rena who got the book. Well done. There is a Q&A. Oh, no time to die from Margaret. Sorry, Margaret, didn't see that. Right, let's go to the next question. This is an interesting one. What are the expectations of analytic teams when embedded in digital transformation? What are they expected to deliver? Now that's from Harsha, but I guess you're going to say it depends on what the value or what the outcomes or what the business requirements are. But
I don't think it makes any difference
where
the analytic team is.
Yeah.
If it's embedded in a digital transformation function, or if they're in IT, or if they're out in a business function, their job is to understand, the business value, gather data, and deliver value back to make that phenomena more, to lessen it or improve it or accelerate it, whatever function you're trying to do.
Yeah, I agree. Andrea, did you have anything on that, or shall we?
No, I think it's like they need to know the operating model. They need to know how the company works to run digital transformation. They need to be possibly business experts who have done that piece of like job manually, or in a traditional way, so that they can actually think about how algorithms can do better.
Here's another one. When starting an analytics function of a legacy business for the first time, who do you hire first, second, or third? It's a common question that people ask. It's a really interesting question because I think people don't know sometimes who to get in and what's the best kind of resource.
Again, it doesn't matter, if it's a startup or if it's Procter & Gamble. I mean, if you are starting in an advanced analytics function, the person you hire is the leader, because that leader, as we said earlier, has an effect on the team members you hire, the team structure, how it fits into the organizational culture. So you hire the VP or the senior VP of data analytics, or the chief analytics officer, or the director of analytics, whoever's going to lead the function at whatever level it's going to be in the organization. That's who you hire first. Then the second person you hire is a data engineer, and the third person you hire is a data visualization person, and the fourth person you hire is a data scientist.
The fourth person, interesting.
I would hire 2, 3, and 4 simultaneously, but yeah. But John's right. If you got to have a strong leader, and you need a leader who can manage up effectively as well as manage down. They got to be able to build a team while they're trying to transform they've got to be very much an evangelist who can sit at the executive tables and go toe to toe. I'm
interested to understand, with the data leader and then the data engineer, the data engineer is bringing the data together, understand. So are you saying that the data leader is going out, getting all the understanding of what the needs are, coming back to the data engineer and saying, okay, here's the roadmap of sorts, here's the strategy. Do we need to start to bring this stuff together?
So I would add a value engineer to this process too. So I think my first hire is a data leader who, it doesn't need to be a data scientist, but needs to be somebody who can help evangelize and drive. And then that next chunk of hires is the data engineer, the data scientist, a data visualization person, and a value engineer. And I'd also add a design thinker in there as well. That'd be my A team. That'd be my dun 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 dun.
Andrea, what do you think?
Yes, no, for me, I mean, I totally agree with this order. I think, in the middle of that, probably there is also like a possible, let's say, deviation from this route. So after the data leader is able to understand, what's going on and what needs to be done, she or he will probably need to think about how to find in the current organizations people with enough growth mindset to actually become business
that's a good
scientists,
point.
data scientists.
Very good point.
Because you don't want to create a detached organization. And of course, I mean, I think like the data leader, I totally agree with John and Bill saying this first person, because he needs to have also, or she needs to have this this attitude and openness to look for internal resources first.
No, and that's interesting, because they should be starting to think about the maturity, the analytic maturity of the organization, but finding people who might be close enough to the people that they're looking for. So why not upskill those people rather, and then start to bring in, others.
Now you're building that coalition, right? You're starting to build that internal coalition. It has ties back to the other parts of the organization. I agree totally, Andrea. That's perfect.
So
and sometimes, Samir, the people are saying, okay, well, you need to bring in, Bill said value engineer and some other people. And you're right, Bill. I wouldn't argue with that at all, but I do want to put something else in there, is that when you hire the data science leader, the analytics leader, whoever it is, you really don't need to hire other people in that area, at least for the next month or two. All of these do come together at some point. They're almost simultaneous, because at this point in time, the analytics leader is going to walk into and make all those connections Bill's talking about in managing sideways and up. And all the use cases are going to flow out of those early conversations. So your use case backlog is going to go from 0 to 100 in the span of a month.
And that, by the way, opens up a whole series of problems, because organizations don't fail because of lack of use cases. They fail because they have too many.
There's too many, and they don't know how to prioritize and
identify, validate, value, and prioritize becomes the critical process next.
And actually,
Samir, we're getting down to the last 5 minutes.
We are.
Right? Is there anything that you wanted to get to, or anything that we need to do before we run out of time?
No, we've done the giveaways.
Okay.
We're all good. The books are done. If there's anything that we've got Bill's encroaching axe. They want to see the axe for some reason. Axe. They want to see the axe. Harsha is really, really dying to see this axe. I don't know. Harsha, do you not have an axe? Maybe you should find one and buy one. Oh, look, here's Bill's Rambo knife.
That's party.
Oh my
two axes. I'm putting mine away.
Look at this. I don't have a knife, but what I do have is a Mad Hatter hat that my daughter made over the weekend.
You do look like Johnny Depp.
There it is. I may look like a crazy axe wielding individual if I did have an axe on me right now. But there we go.
I like the Swiss Army knife. I like that. That's
I got to take.
Right?
That's right.
Somebody take a picture of this quickly. I can't find my snip and sketch or whatever it is. Do you do it? Oh, John's going to pull out. I don't know.
The hats are too clean. There's no blood dripping.
Okay, well, I'm going to take the hat off.
Got it.
So I think we've probably got time for one last question. And we talked about it earlier on. You have mentioned it in several different guises, but I think it was Colleen who asked, has GDPR or other privacy laws hindered the work of analytics teams?
No, it's actually made them more effective, and it's driven more discipline in the process. Now, Andrea lives in that region, so I'll let him add on to that. But I work as part of a global organization. We have to comply with all the laws. So it's just made us smarter. That's all.
Has it made you smarter in terms of understanding all of the lineage of the data and really amplifying that to make sure that you really are on top of? Sorry, Andrea, go and carry on.
No, I just want to say I totally agree with John. Made us smarter, ask the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, absolutely positive thing.
Okay. So, there's Mark Paradise says Andrea has the unicorn of knives. Harsha, very good.
It also has a toothpick in it too, right?
It does. It always does,
and
doesn't it? The little white toothpick. Yeah.
I love
And
it.
Harsha says a Cheshire cat will complete the picture. Yeah, we didn't have a Cheshire cat. That's true. And then John Hennessy said those axes are too clean. Oh my goodness, no blood dripping from the knife. Well, we haven't got to Halloween yet. So look, what I wanted to say is a big thank you to Andrea coming on as our special guest. Thank you so much. You've been brilliant. Good luck in your new role. And I know you're starting next week, so I'm sure you will be head first into it. And look forward to having you again at one of our crazy AMAs. Although it wasn't as crazy as it was normally. But
it was great.
But
I was scared, but yeah. No,
thank you for all the people who turned up today. You've been a brilliant audience. Thank you for all of your questions. Thank you for all of your engagement. Thank you for responding to those wonderful questions that I put together. And as always, thank you to John Thompson for bringing all of his insights, his valuable 37 years of knowledge, and to Bill for being the Schmarzo and for bringing his A team and his A game to this fantastic AMA. And there it is again. And I just wanted to say, it's a goodbye from me and it's goodbye from everybody else on the panel.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.